I'm going to call this meeting of the SABA Board of Directors to order, and I'm going to record the attendance. Please say present or here or whatever when I call your name. Michael Jones, present. Olivia?
Present.
And we are recording, correct, Josh? Good. Gershom?
Present.
And Larry?
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum of directors. I'd like to note that we have Josh Ripp and Daniel from the staff administration. I don't see Nick yet. And we have a number of guests, so I'd like to welcome the guests that are joining us tonight. Welcome to the meeting. And first thing I'm going to ask for is approval of the agenda. Is there someone who'd like to make a motion to approve?
We'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Olivia. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Gershom. Michael Jones votes yes. Olivia?
Yes.
Gershom?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay, the agenda has been approved. This is the point in the meeting where members of the public are welcome to make comments to the board on items that are not on the agenda. So are there any members of the community that would like to address the board?
Hi, I would like to make a comment. My name's
You're Donna Lefevre?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm a teacher here, but also a coach for a few of our a few of our teams. We have also a lot of student athlete representatives, and so I wanted to share some information on their behalf and on the behalf of some of the coaches that we have here at SABA. Yeah, I wanted to start out just by sharing a little bit about our athletics program. Right now, we're finishing our third year of being an official, part of an official league where we have 4 sports that are offered throughout the year: cross country, basketball, soccer, track and field. Having the sports program has taught students about healthy routines that they can apply and build on for their whole life. It's given students a supportive space in their school community. It's built positive relationships across grade levels and among teachers, students, and members of the community. And it has also been a fun way for students to learn discipline and build motivation. It is an incredibly positive and necessary addition to what we offer here at SABA. From here, we would like to see an expansion on this program. Adding at least 1 additional sport so that we can offer 2 sports per season, providing a middle school program so our students at the middle school level have access to these healthy opportunities for support and growth as well. And we'd also like to see a continuation of the athletic director role to be an official position at the school. 2 years ago, I gave a similar presentation to the board for the addition of an athletic director position to be at least half-time in order to grow the sports program that we have. The SABA administration and the board agreed to a 0.2 position, which would be at least 1 day a week of someone working for 8 hours towards the sports program. According to the salary schedule that was made available recently to the staff, the athletic director role has been reduced to a stipend position, or not a position, just to a stipend. That would be less than a coach. This is a significant reduction in the school's investment in the sports program. It is extremely necessary to have protected time for this role in order to put the structures in place that it takes to build a program. Unfortunately, the role these past 2 years was given to an employee that was already full-time, and so they didn't have the capacity to put in that time for growth. While this person was able to develop some structures for student athletic paperwork, scheduling and communication about games and practices was improved. They were able to hold regular meetings at the start of the season and end of season and have award ceremonies, and they attended the AD meetings within the league. But this is only part of what we need in order to grow the program. When we're talking about building a program or managing a program that is new, We really need someone who is going to connect with the students throughout the year to recruit athletes to participate in an activity that we know is beneficial and can help them get into college. We want someone who will address the barriers placed in front of our student athletes, the number one being transportation to practices or to games. We want someone who wants to provide these opportunities to as many students as possible. And we want someone who has built connections in the community to gain access to the resources and training facilities that will allow our program to sustain itself. The students have a vision of what the sports program could be and would love the opportunity to make a formal presentation to the board at the next board meeting about the current state of the athletics program and ways that we could grow. Currently, the top priorities to address within the program as is to ensure that there are uniforms for all athletes in every sport, support with transportation, that's a huge one. And there are a lot of different ways that the school could take steps into eliminating this barrier for our students. Provide more sport opportunities, so increase the number of sports that are available and increase the number of coaches so that the program can expand to more students, like incorporating the middle school. And look into having student trainers that could attend practices or games, that could put together ice bags, could help keep the first aid backpacks stocked, like things that could get students that want to be a part of an athletics program, but maybe not be an athlete themselves, or ones that are looking into a profession in the health field. You know, it can provide those opportunities. So students have these ideas that they want to see come to fruition. And so we as adults want to make sure that we hear these out, and being able to be on the agenda to hear about the sports program would be a step to do that. We would like to see the school search for coaches with the same urgency that they would use to look for a math teacher. We want to see the school put in the time to develop the program in the same way that they put in the time searching for an ELA curriculum. Like, these are the things that the student athletes are really requesting of the school, and I think it's a good direction for us to go. An athletics program is a great way to support our scholars here at SEBA from 6th grade to 12th grade. And by supporting the sustainability and growth of this program, you're supporting the students that are here in our community. So I hope that you're able to hear that out and that we can continue to build on this discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. And we'll talk about that another time, because we're precluded from discussing it at this present meeting. But thank you for a lot of information that I think is very valuable. Any other comments from the board? Alrighty, and we will proceed to action items, which I guess, Josh, we can go ahead and do because we have a quorum, and even though Mary's not here.
Yes.
Okay, so the first item on the action items is the consent agenda. Before I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, are there any items on the consent agenda that someone would like to, board member would like to pull off for further discussion? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion.
I'll second
Thank you,
that.
Gershom. Thank you, Olivia. And Michael, how do you vote? I vote yes. Olivia?
Yes.
Gershom?
Yes.
Larry?
yes,
The motion is approved. For the consent agenda is approved. We're now going to move on to the reopening resolution. Josh, you want to present that?
Yes. So what I am proposing to the board through this resolution is that SEBA fully reopen for the 2021-22 school year beginning July 22nd. The resolution outlines the reasons why we should do that. Our local authorizing district, Pajaro Valley Unified School District Superintendent, Dr. Michelle Rodriguez, has indicated that her intent for the district is to reopen, as well as the county superintendent at Dr. Farris Sabah. So I think the reason that this will be, if the board chooses to approve this, I think it'll allow for both our staff and our students to formally plan out their next school year and be able to make decisions about what next year looks like, knowing that school will be full-time in session.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the reopening resolution?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Larry. I'll start from the other end now. Let's see, Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom,
Yes.
Olivia,
Yes.
and Michael votes yes as well. I also just want to take a moment to recognize Maya Carizales, who included a nice message in the chat, and I hope the board members get a chance to read that throughout at some point during this meeting. Okay. Moving on to our next item. Increasing electrical capacity. Josh again.
So for this one, we are exploring installing air conditioning at Saba, and the first step in that process is to increase the capacity that Saba receives electricity from the grid. And so the project to do this is involved. It involves an additional transformer as well as some additional equipment in our, a secondary conductor, a secondary transformer, and then a larger storage closet for this equipment. That said, regardless if we move forward with full-on air conditioning, but if we were to have, say, a computer lab in the future, or even an electric carport, as those become more and more common, this will give us the options to have any of those things should we increase our capacity. So I am requesting through this proposal that the board approve this. The total amount is $12,200, and it'll allow us to begin that process to increase the capacity. It does involve permits through the city, as well as communication with PG&E. And if you approve this, then we will move forward with increasing our electrical capacity.
Very good. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Thanks, Gershom. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Olivia. Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom,
Yes.
Olivia,
Yes.
and Michael votes yes as well. Motion is passed. Okay, moving on to D. I think that's supposed to be bond council engagement for Carrington and Sutcliffe. Josh.
Correct. So this is a proposal for the Saba Board of Directors to approve Aura Carrington and Sutcliffe as our bond counsel for the potential purchase of our building. And the bond counsel would oversee the legal aspects of the bond issuance and ensure that we remain in full compliance as we move forward in negotiations to potentially purchase our facility.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Also moved.
Second?
Second. I'll
Thanks,
second
Olivia.
that.
Now I'm going to open up for some discussion. A question I had was, looks like the price tag for these fellows is about $75,000 all in. And I know that one of the challenges that we have with the acquisition of the building is changing the zoning. What happens if ORIC goes and does their $75,000 worth of work and sends us the bill, and then down the road, what happens is that the zoning is not changed?
Excellent question. I'm going to discuss that when I do my facility update, but I can directly answer that now. This fee will only be paid if the bond is issued. And so to answer your question more expansively, what we envision right now, it's going to be a two-part meeting with the city council. And in the first part would be just a hearing of the evidence, and at the second part a vote. And what we're hoping is that after that first hearing, the bond could potentially be issued. In that situation, the potential bond purchasers would put their money into an escrow account, depending on the final outcome of the city council approval for our lot to be rezoned. And should the lot be rezoned, then the bond would be issued, and therefore we would have to pay that fee. And should it not, then that bond would not be issued, and that would go back to the money would go back to the bond purchasers.
All righty. Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Michael votes yes. Olivia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Larry?
yes,
Who
Motion
gave the
passes.
motion in second? I'm sorry.
I think it was Larry and Olivia.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the student information system. Subject close to my heart. Josh,
So Sabo was a little bit concerned about the potential split from the district, the Pajaro Unified School District, in terms of our agreement over Synergy. But after communicating with Synergy, it's actually going to be a win for us. There is an expense involved. It's going to be about $17,000 per year to go forward with our own Synergy account, but it's going to give us a lot more control over our schedules, classes, state reporting, which will more than pay for itself over the course of the year. And so with this
who did you
proposal-
say had the concern?
SABA administration did.
Oh.
Yeah. And so this proposal is basically allowing SABA to purchase our own Synergy account for this upcoming school year. One of the reasons we chose to go with Synergy is that since the district also uses Synergy, as more than 90% of our students who come to SABA are from the local district, it'll allow us to easily receive and transfer out students using the same SIS.
Great. A motion to approve.
Motion.
Thanks, Gershom.
I'll
To
second
second.
that.
Thanks, Olivia. Discussion. One question I had is around the idea of security. I think it's a great idea to be not, beholden to the PVUSD for all the things that are going on in that district, and that we're on our own and managing our own business. However, I'm concerned about security and would like to know if what happens if somebody comes at us and hacks us and or does a ransomware and locks down all our information. To what degree is Synergy responsible for their performance and the security of their service?
That's a great question. I don't think I can fully answer that at this time. What I can say is that we have the potential to enter into an agreement to have additional servers where all of our information is stored separately, which would give us some protection. But in the situation you're describing, which is something we should be concerned about, I'm not sure what the next steps are. If there's an insurance policy we need to get for that, or if there's some other protection that I'm not aware of. But I can look that up and bring that to the board at the next meeting.
Yeah, and the other sort of related question that I had was, yeah, just flew away. Never mind. I think whatever system we have, that's going to be concerned. So I have no problem voting to approve this tonight. Oh, I know. The question I had to do with, I know this is a cloud-based service, but another related question would be their backups. What is their approach to backup? Is there my concern is if everything's residing on the same group of servers and that group of servers gets hacked, then it doesn't matter. But if you have one set of servers here and then a physically separated and firewalled system over there, where the backup is. Those kinds of measures can help avoid some of the problems that exist out there these days. So any information you can dig up on how they approach those security issues, I'd like to hear about, but I will be voting to support the synergy motion tonight. Any other discussion?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So what I was understanding from the presentation is that SEBA is going to pay to have Synergy, something that we've already been using, but you have to pay more money to distance yourself from the PVUSD, like the district?
That's correct. We're actually obligated to separate from the district. So it's kind of, we were able to use PVUSD's contract with Synergy for a number of years, well, 2. And now they've asked us to, pay for our own SIS. And so that's the outcome.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Larry, how do you vote?
yes,
Gershom,
Yes.
Olivia,
yes,
and Michael votes yes as well. Okay, on to gift acceptance policy.
So this was a requirement for our audit, which we just began prepping for next year's audit. And they requested that SEBA adopt a gift acceptance policy, they being our auditors, Clifton Larson Allen. And I wrote them back asking if they have any recommended gift acceptance policy drafts. And so after reviewing, they sent us about 6. After reviewing a few different ones and trying to look at what's going to work best for SEBA, we came up with this gift acceptance policy. I think it's really basic. It still allows us to receive a wide variety of gifts, but also makes us pause, should that gift be real property, personal property, securities such as stocks and bonds.
All righty. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve.
Thanks, Olivia. Second,
I'll second.
discussion or questions? Hearing none. Going to my list. Michael Jones votes yes. Olivia, how do you vote?
Yes,
Gershom,
Yes.
Larry?
Yes,
Thank you. Okay. On to G, board signatories. Josh,
So this is to prepare for next school year. What I'm asking in this proposal is that the board continue to approve me to, or allow for me to sign any contracts for less than $10,000. And then what this this document is stating is that for any contracts over $10,000 outside of employee contracts, I will need signature from one of the following officers. So the board president, Michael Jones, board secretary, Olivia, or the board chief financial officer, Mary Navas, who is not with us tonight. She'll be joining in a few minutes. If you choose to approve this, I will take this over to the board, or excuse me, to Santa Cruz County Bank, and then they will have this on file. Related to this, the question came up in preparing for our next year's audit about who can open and close cash accounts and who has access to SEBA funds. And the answer is no one can by themselves. Any cash accounts that are going to be open or closed would need board approval with evidenced by minutes prior to that happening. And so really what this document doing outside of memorializing what the rules are for signing contracts is allowing the bank to have a clear indication of who can and cannot sign for contracts and sign checks for the next school year.
all righty. Motion to approve.
so moved.
Thanks, Larry.
I'll second.
Second. Thanks, Gershom. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. Michael votes yes. Olivia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Larry?
yes,
Thank you. Onward to H, draft reimbursement resolution. Josh, again.
Thank you, Michael. For this draft reimbursement resolution, SEBA is going to incur costs throughout the coming 6 to 12 months related to the potential purchase of our facility. And SEBA Public Schools or SEBA College Prep will be paying for those expenses. But in the event that we are able to purchase the facility, and funds begin going into our SEBA Spartan LLC limited liability company that we approved at a previous meeting, the SEBA Spartan LLC would reimburse SEBA College Prep for all expenses that were incurred in facilitating the purchase of our facility. So this document is affirming that.
Motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Thanks, Olivia.
second.
Second. Thanks, Larry. Discussion or questions?
I had a question, but I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding when the correct time to bring this up would be. So you can tell me if this is like a later discussion. I'm just curious of like if we're talking about buying the building that SEBA's in, has there been any discussion in the works about separating the middle and high school and finding separate housing for us, or is that irrelevant to the discussion at hand?
That's an important question, but not germane to this particular item. But
Okay.
Josh, you want to take a stab at providing a short answer?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. And we did, like, when we looked at purchasing this facility, we actually looked at what all of our options were. And there are, to be just perfectly honest, there's not a lot of great other options out there. And so, yeah, there is no plans at this time to have a separate middle school from our high school.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Can we make it part of future discussions
Uh,
someday?
You're welcome to ask him to put it on the agenda.
Cool, thank you.
All righty, we have a motion and a second. Larry, how do you vote?
yes,
Gershom,
Yes.
Olivia,
Yes.
and Michael votes yes as well. All righty. Going on to I, Measure Ed contract, Josh Ripp.
Okay, so Measure Ed is a company that supports all types of schools with CalPAD reporting. And at SEBA, CalPAD reporting is really important as a single site LEA. And a few years ago, we had something misreported through no fault of our own, but our dashboard was marked down because of that, and there were consequences for that. So we learned from that how important accurate CalPADS reporting is. So when we're talking about CalPADS reporting, we're talking about attendance, academic performance on SBAC or CAS, a whole host of things, just basically how is SEBA performing as a school. Measure Ed service is basically to review our CalPADS reports and cross-reference those against our attendance, against our SBAC results, against a whole number of metrics to make sure that they're accurate. We've used as Measure Ed this year as well as last year, and we would like to continue using them next year.
All righty. Motion to approve.
so moved,
Thanks, Larry. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Gershom. Discussion or questions? So I just say in terms of discussion that this is really getting down to the bread and butter of our being a charter school and making sure that we're getting accurate information to the people that determine whether we can continue as a charter school or not. So I'm glad to see that we are putting some good tools in place that we control, that we're not dependent on the PVUSD for anymore. So I want to compliment the staff on moving forward with that.
Michael, can I just add that Measure Ed is a great company that I've worked with for a while. They're also offering a great price. This is a very low price point, $13.29, I believe it is, a month. So that plus the now separated EduPoint or Synergy software, I think you're absolutely right. That's also a pretty cheap price, $17,000 a year for the SIS and $1,300 a month for Measure Ed. Great prices, so well negotiated SABA administration.
Glad to get that perspective, and just notice that Nick is no longer with a beard. It's cleaned up. Alrighty, we have a motion, a second on the Measure Ed contract. Michael votes yes. Olivia,
Yes.
Gershom,
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Alrighty. And to the last action item here, the middle school ELA curriculum. Josh.
Okay, so if you are in Boardable right now, I attached an initial price quote of $12,000 to use the middle school ELA instruction materials publisher Amplify. And that original price point was $12,700. But after reviewing the products that we are getting and also speaking with West Ed and completing our instructional material adoption process, the middle school team realized that really the California edition of Amplify would be more suitable. And in addition, using the English language development, ELD, instructional materials through Amplify would also be of benefit. And so the complete cost for that is $25,842, and I'm asking the board to approve this tonight. One question that I know will come up is how will these instruction materials be paid for? And we've been working closely with our back office service provider, DMS, and we will be using ESSER funds to pay for instructional materials. And that will easily cover the adoption processes that we're currently undergoing right now.
And for the folks that are attending the meeting that don't know what ESSER funds are, could you briefly explain that?
Yes, absolutely. So ESSER funds were one-time funds that schools received in response to the pandemic. So they're basically emergency relief funds, and there was ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. We received the first funds for this school year, and we've expended those. A lot of the funds were used for our in-person instructional support for stipends when teachers and staff supported students in returning to the building beginning on April 13th. Then we'll have ESSER 2, which will be used primarily during the 21-22 school year, and then ESSER 3, which will be used for the 22-23 school year and beyond. Daniel, is there anything you want to add to that in terms of description?
No, I think you hit it on the head, and I have further updates on some of the other one-time funding that we expect to receive next year. I'll have a little bit more of an update on that in the next item when we get to reports.
I would just add that the ESSER 3 funds have already been sent out. That's the American Rescue Act, or the American Rescue Program, the one that was $1.9 trillion that the administration passed. And 2/3 of that has already been sent to the state of California, which is some, massive amount of money. I think it's $81 billion. And they're required by federal law to send it to districts and charter schools within 60 days. But the state of California is quite slow. So I don't believe that we will actually get the money within 60 days. It's supposed to happen in May, the first 2/3 of that ESSER 3 funding, which is the biggest amount of funding. But I expect it to come later than that. So, and Josh, you're absolutely right that the expenditure of those funds doesn't have to happen until 2024. So we can easily wait to spend those ESSER 3 funds next year, the year after, and possibly even the year after that.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Michael, if I can interject, since there's two attachments here, can you ask for a motion to approve the California edition of the Amplify Middle School curriculum, just so we're clear on the approval?
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the California edition of the ELA curriculum?
So I move to approve it. And how much did you say it was, Josh?
25,000.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Olivia. Any further discussion or questions?
Just a curiosity question. What is it that made it pretty much double from the previous one? Is it just because now it's in California?
No, great question. It is, Emily, could you speak to that a little bit since you're on?
Sure. Well, so I don't think the price difference came from the difference between the national and the California version so much as the addition of ELD curriculum, right?
I'm just looking at the two price quotes that we have, and it looks like ELD is, no, it's not 50. Yeah, it doesn't look like the difference is in the ELD amount. So
the California version also has more online support. So Amplify is cool because it has both physical copies of the books, and then it's also like has an entire curriculum based on the computer as well. And yeah, so that was one difference between California and national that I'm remembering off the top of my head.
okay, so and sorry, so I just went down the list of both of these, and this is why I attached them both here. So there is an anthology for each of the grade levels and sets, and those are, there's a set of 25 for grade 7, set of 25 for grade 6. Those were not included in the original quote. Can you speak to, Emily, as a middle school ELA teacher, why the anthology was requested for the second quote?
Not off the top of my head, no, Josh. Sorry.
Okay.
This is part of why I wanted, part of why I wanted to talk to you earlier today about it. Yeah, I can't speak off the top of my head because it was a joint decision with Ms. Rankin and I.
Okay.
So an anthology means that we're getting class sets of books that will complement the curriculum.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm understanding. We're pretty much getting a little bit more, even including in the textbooks, than we would have gotten on the national one. That's what it kind of sounds like, right?
Yes. So we had just a digital package in the original, to answer your question more clearly, Gershom, now I've looked at it. And this is getting us print materials in addition to the digital materials.
Got it.
And I'm
Okay.
going to also assume that part of what's going on here is that the publisher is taking advantage of the fact that if this is a California edition, it needs to be in alignment with our CAS tests and state, or whatever the state tests are, which is, another reason why they're going to charge us more.
Thank you for clarifying it.
Alrighty. We have a motion and a second. Let's see, Michael votes yes. Olivia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gershom,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
motion passes. Okay, on to reports, and we get to hear from Daniel finally.
Finally. Just loading up my document here.
Are you going to share with us?
I'm going to try.
Do
My computer.
you want me to share, Daniel? Is that easier? And then you can just talk?
Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be wonderful.
Everyone see that okay? Yes.
Are you going to put it in the presentation mode?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying.
There you
All right,
go.
here we go. Is that clear?
Yes.
And this is also in the attachment that's posted on the website and in Portable. Daniel.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so this document goes over our expenditures from the beginning of the year all the way through March 31st. We're still in solid financial position. We still project to have over 3 months in cash reserves at the end of the year. Yeah, that's about 33% of our annual expenditures. And if we go down a couple pages, Mr. Rip. Actually, before we do, I just wanted to know, we discussed some of the one-time funds that are available to SABA. We talked in detail about ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 that are coming from the federal side. From the state side, we are receiving 2 different grant funds. The first being the in-person learning and extended learning opportunity grant. This grant is targeted primarily for aiding schools in reopening for this school year. We expect to have half of that revenue available this month and then the other half going in August. I think Mr. Rip noted that these funds will be used to pay our staff for the in-person services that we started in the middle of April. The other grant funding that we are getting is the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant. This Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant is for implementing various strategies to accelerate learning and address student needs. 85% of the funds must be used for in-person services, and at least 10% must be used to employ paraprofessionals. This revenue is expected to be here, I believe, also in the same timeline. So 50% in May, 50% in August. We anticipate using these revenues in the 21-22 school year. For this one, we are preparing a grant plan that I think, was it on this agenda?
I was just thinking about that. It was not.
Okay, we'll have to address that another time. And then, so in total, for the next few years, including the state and federal revenues, we will be receiving $3.5 million in one-time funding to be used over the next 3 years. We're working with DMS to ensure compliance and accountability of all funds. We project to end the year with a cash balance of $2.4 million, which is, as I noted earlier, is at 33% of our annual expenditures. Overall, the expenses are tracking under budget. We've gone through, at least as of this report, 75% of the school year, and we've only used 63% of the funds. Our revenue is pretty much in line with that 63%. Revenue is kind of lacking a little bit behind, but starting this month, we will be starting to receive some of those revenues that we anticipate to use next year, and then we'll start to get some of those deferred revenues from the state for the rest of the school year. The next financial update that we'll have will be in June of in a couple weeks, or in about 4 weeks, and then we'll also have on the 15th. We'll also have that other board meeting to go over the adoption of the LCAP and the budget.
So Daniel, am I hearing you correctly? It sounds like we've got this huge amount, 3.5 million of one-time funding. So it's like a huge pile. It must make it a challenge to, separate what is one-time money from what is actual operating expenses. The trick there is 3.5 million is a lot of money. But there are some inherent dangers and risks there, in that there will be a temptation to say, oh, let's, pay 10 more teachers because we can afford it. And then lock ourselves into an ongoing cost that eventually we no longer have that one-time money, and we're back to just the operating revenue that we get. These are sort of extraordinary times. How are we going to deal with that?
Right. So I think for me and Josh, a priority right now is getting the LCAP together, getting all the applications and grant compliance things that we need to do in order to make sure that we can receive those and everything comes in okay, and then adopting next year's budget. But as a part of that budget planning process, we do work closely with DMS, as we did last year when it was the opposite problem. We came up with different revenue funding levels last year to help us really determine, what is our operating budget going to look like at different state funding levels. We had no idea what to expect on the revenue side, and somehow we ended up on the completely opposite end of that problem. So one thing that me and Josh are always looking at is, yes, we have a lot of one-time funds over the next 3 years, but we also want to balance, like you said, making our decisions for operating expenses with the thought in mind that our general ongoing operational revenues are pretty much going to stay flat. So any decisions we make in the next 1-2 years for added expenditures, we just have to be cognizant of things that will be ongoing beyond the one-time revenues. So like you said, adding extra staffing, adding other programs that will keep us on the hook for a certain expenditure amount for 1 to 5 years. We just have to be very cognizant of what that does to our overall outlook beyond this one-time revenue. So one of the things that we're hoping DMS can help us with our next budget is to show us what according to our plans to how we use the funds, what that will leave us with if we did not have one-time funding. So if we didn't have one-time funding, what do our current operating expenditures project us to be at in lieu of one-time funds? So if we were to, for our current staffing and facilities and everything else that is ongoing for us, including our program, we want to see if that impacts us negatively.
I would just add a couple of thoughts. So, plus one to everything Daniel just said. If and when the facilities is able to be purchased, that will secure an ongoing savings amount that can then be put into program. That's not something we can count on now, but certainly that is something that would be an ongoing amount of saved expenses on facilities that is currently being expended that could then be invested in the program. So that would be one inflection point at which you could you say, let's invest more in program. Right now, with just one-time funds, it is challenging to make ongoing investments, as everybody has said. The other thing you could do as a board is address, if you don't have a reserve policy. You have very healthy reserves right now, but having a reserve policy that keeps them high would be one way to ensure long-term savings and long-term stability of the school finances, saving for a rainy day fund, I guess. It's something.
Do you have examples of those that you could share with us?
Yeah, sorry. So if I could just interject here, I understand your question, Michael. So we can't spend this on staffing. So what we're doing is talking about having summer, spring, and fall intersessions where there's stipended positions where teachers are serving students outside of the traditional year. The instructional material adoption could be 6 figures once it's all said and done. That will go towards this. Much of the facility update that we're going to undertake that we approved a couple months ago can the money, this one-time funding can be used for that, including the air conditioning, which we haven't brought to the board yet. So those are some of the bigger expenses that we are thinking of using with the one-time funding.
Since you just brought it up, is that air conditioning going to be installed before the kids come back to school?
TBD, depends on how far we get with the engineering process.
Right. Hey, Daniel, is it? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's all I had. If anybody wants to, Josh, you want to scroll through the pages and anybody has any notes on anything, I'm happy to help answer questions.
Okay.
I think Donna has a question about investment in facilities or improving existing facilities that could be used long-term for athletics. I think, Josh, do you want to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So long-term, we're hoping to acquire a property across the street on Locust and build a gymnasium. I actually just got the drawings back from our architect this week. And while it's just a goal right now, we are taking actions to make that goal come to fruition. But that has been one of the big goals that we would like to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years.
If anybody doesn't have any, oh, hi Mary.
Hey, Mary.
Hi. My apologies. Went longer than I expected.
Good to have you here.
Okay.
So Mary, we are on the operations report. We're going over the Delta monthly update for our finances through March 31st. We seem to be in good cash position to end this year. I think you are well aware of that is the case for a lot of schools. And we were having a discussion about some of the one-time funding that we'll be receiving over the next year that we will plan to expend over the next 2-3 years. We had a discussion about keeping in mind our operating revenues with one-time funding. We wouldn't want to expend the one-time funding on things that would be on the hook for more than 3-5 years without having that overall multi-year projection in mind.
So as we go through here, Daniel, do you want to just hit a couple highlights on each page, or does the board want to ask questions they might have, or? Is there any questions about the budget versus actual detail page?
Oh, sorry. I was looking at something else. I don't have any questions. Looks good.
Next one is
It's the same thing. So this one is okay. So this is the monthly cash flow. If you go down to, I wish I had your mouse. You can look on the cash flow page, Josh. On that blue line just above the graph, there's a lot. That row talks about the days of cash on hand. So if you go to the very last one, that's where I noted we anticipate having 140 days of cash on hand. So that's kind of how I noted that we look to be in solid cash position moving forward. That's the lowest number that we have, say for January. So we're in good position cash wise. But save for any questions, that's it.
The way that works is you take the total cost of what it takes to run the school, which is for 180 days. And what you're telling us with this is that we have sufficient funds to run the school for 140 of those 180 days. Is that accurate?
If we were to have just that amount of cash on hand, the 2.457 million, yes, without receiving any further revenues, we would be able to run the school for approximately 140 days.
Wow.
a good spot to be in, right?
Yeah,
I like
it's
that.
Mhm,
it's definitely a different place from where we've been in years past.
mhm.
But that's all I have. If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to field them.
Any other
just-
questions?
I
for
wanted
Daniel?
to reiterate that the potential investment in athletics facilities, it's great to hear that there's going to be the potential investment in a gymnasium. One way that sports programs can bring funding into their program is by hosting tournaments or hosting different like competitions or meets. So that's one way that if we put an investment in athletic facilities, that's a way that we could generate funds back into the sports program. So I think that it definitely should be like thought about to make sure that the gym is made, but also the biggest sport that's supported at this school is soccer. And finding a soccer field is one of the hardest things to do. So I think if that could be a priority, looking at ways that we could make that happen or gain access to a field in that way should be on the top of the priority list.
Yeah, I'm working with a group that emerged out of the Watsonville Rotary called the Pajaro Valley Sports Foundation. And our goal is to create a sports complex with about between 8 and 16 fields. But our first effort is to basically redo the athletic field at Freedom School. And this is a project we've been working on for the last 3 years. And, and we've scoured all of Watsonville to try to find suitable places for new soccer fields. It's very challenging. So, but I think you're on the right track there. It'd be great to have a soccer field.
Agreed. I remember actually being at one of those Rotary meetings when you had brought up that committee. So I'm happy that's still going. That sounds like a great idea. 8 to 16 fields would be amazing for the community.
And building on that idea that Donna was talking about, with that kind of facility, as we see in Morgan Hill and in Salinas, it becomes a moneymaker because of the tournaments that you can run and the people that you can draw in from other areas. So it's great for tourism, great for restaurants, lots of benefits to the community. But anyway, so I agree. Thank you, Daniel.
No problem. Thank you for sharing your screen for me, Josh.
Sure.
Okay, we'll now go to Josh for the head of school report.
Excellent. All right, so head of school report, facility purchase update. So within the next 2 weeks, we hope to submit an application to the city of Watsonville asking for 3 things: to rezone the Safer property from industrial, our current status, to institutional. That's the first application we're going to be submitting. The second is to redesignate the SABA property in the city of Watsonville general plan from industrial to public, quasi-public. And the third application that we'll be submitting all at the same time, and they'll work their way through the different departments concurrently, is amending SABA's existing 10-year conditional use permit, which expires June 2023, to become permanent. The timeline to hear back about this could be as short as 3 to 6 months, depending upon what reports SABA is required to provide. So we know that there'll be a traffic report. We have one from about 1.5 years ago. It's unclear if they'll want a separate traffic report, but that's relatively minor. The big question is this California Environmental Quality Act environmental study. If that is required, that will extend the timeline from 3 to 6 months to 9 to 12 months. It's unclear whether CEQA will be required in the application process. We are submitting a document outlining why CEQA should not be required for our rezoning purposes. There is case law to support that. Costs involved with this could range from as low as $10,000 to as much as $100,000. That's the reason that we adopted that resolution earlier in the meeting. SABA will incur those costs throughout the next 6 to 12 months, and then will be reimbursed by SABA Spartan LLC as that organization begins to receive lease payments. Critical to all of this is this conditional use permit. that's the reason that we're kind of in a frozen state right now with the bond outlay, is because the bond underwriters will not move forward with a bond issuance until a conditional use permit is changed from 10 years to permanent. And so we're hoping through this 3-part application to achieve that change. That said, I also want to point out that regardless of, I'm confident, and I think we'll be able to see this facility purchase through to completion. Regardless of whether we are or not, we would have had to confront this conditional use permit by June 2023, no matter what. And so that's kind of when that is when our 10-year conditional use permit ends, and we would have needed to have an additional conditional use permit for another 10 years prior to that, our current one expiring. The building owners are willing to work with us as we work through this. And I've mentioned the bonds, potential bond sale, and the underwriters are also willing to work through this with us. The most recent news in this is SEBA has parking spaces for, I want to say 48 people, yet we have 63 employees, and that is an issue that we need to resolve prior to submitting our application. So I'm meeting with our real estate agent and our attorney tomorrow to discuss what we need to write for that. But that is the update in our SEBA facility purchase quest. Any questions?
Any feel for what kind of reception we're going to get from the zoning board?
No, I mean, Elizabeth Sanborn, she does this for a living. She feels confident that they'll accept this. But yeah, I couldn't say one way or the other right now.
So we have to
All right.
hold off on any bond issuance until this is cleared up.
That's correct. So we had everything ready to go, and we're going to prepare the documents for it and start they have to come out and interview me. That's on hold right now. One of the key parts to this, that the funds for the building would go into escrow in the process of this being approved. And then depending on the final outcome, the funds would either go to the current building owners because the building would be purchased, or they would go back to the people who would like to buy the bond.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Okay. And then the second part of my report is the instructional material update. And we've been making great progress there. We've met 4 times thus far. Teachers are looking at different publishers' instructional materials through the lens of usability, assessments, and English learner supports. I've really appreciated all of the teachers' efforts. They've been super busy with kind of working their way back into teaching in the building, but it's even more challenging because it's hybrid, so they have to teach both students virtually and in person at the same time. But they have really made genuine efforts to move forward, and we even saw tonight the middle school ELA curriculum was able, or the middle school ELA team was able to select a curriculum earlier in the process than I anticipated. There's 5 more sessions to go, but we do hope to have instruction materials adopted by June for the rest of the departments. So that is the instructional material adoption update.
Fantastic. Okay, now we get down to board recruitment. Was Nick going to talk about that?
I'm going to just give you a monthly reminder. I was just researching on the Santa Cruz Community Development Fund website, volunteer opportunities, the volunteer match program that operates across California. It's something I'd be happy to post unless somebody else would like to on behalf of the board or the school. But that is just one idea of ways that we can reach out to the general public. As I said last month, the best way of finding board members is for you board members to recruit them personally. And so I just wanted to issue that reminder that we do have a goal of getting an additional 1 or 2 board members by the end of the year.
That's right. Kirsham, have you been able to talk to anybody about joining our board?
Not besides that friend that that he decided to move to San Francisco. I haven't had any other opportunities of finding somebody else. And he
Okay.
just came by to visit today, but yeah.
Yeah, you're there in the community. It'd be great to get somebody from the community on here.
Yes.
Mary, have you had a chance to talk to anybody?
Well, I've talked to 2 different people and they politely declined.
I did
So
the same thing. I
putting it
reached out
out
to 2
there.
people and yeah.
Yeah.
Olivia, have you had any luck?
I have not. The people I know, they're so busy. I mean, we're all busy, right? But no, not at this
Okay.
time.
Well,
But
if
I
you
will
can't tell,
continue to try.
if you can't tell,
Thank
I'm
you
trying to
all for
twist
your
the screw a
efforts.
little bit to put a little pressure on people to reach out to some more people so that we can meet that goal of 1 to 2 extra members by June.
Mhm.
I
Are
Very
there
good.
any residency requirements? Like, you have to live in Monterey or Santa Cruz County?
That's a good question. So right now, there are absolutely no residency requirements. However, in normal times, there are also no residency requirements, but you do have to have a majority of the board members either phoning in or in person present within the county of residence, meaning Santa Cruz County. That doesn't mean you need to live there. You could just work there. So it's perfectly fine for people from Monterey or Santa Clara, wherever, to to be board members and count towards quorum. If they are able to either come to a meeting in person once the pandemic restrictions are lifted, or phone in from a location within the county. We fully expect that the old limitations will come back when the governor's emergency order from last March is lifted, but we don't know for sure. There is certainly a strong case to be made to make these Zoom, the lack of restrictions and the extra Zoom capabilities permanent. It certainly cuts down on a lot of, commute times or traffic, but we have no indication thus far that Governor Newsom is going to do that.
Thank you.
And I see that we still have Gonzalo and Maurilio on the call here, and I hope that means that they're perhaps considering
Membership?
membership, joining the board.
Those
And,
are 2 of our students.
Those are students.
oh, well,
I have somebody.
Oh, Larry has
Larry
someone.
has
Larry.
someone.
I have somebody who is actually happy to do this. His name is Ventura Garcia Ortiz. He is a Spanish teacher at East Palo Alto Academy. I know him well, but he lives in Watsonville. Grew up in Watsonville.
That's fantastic.
That
Shares
is,
a
it's-
lot of the same experiences as our families do. His wife was deported. He's got 2 young sons. So if there is a silver lining to the pandemic, it's that he got to teach from distance, being in Mexico with his family instead of separated from them here. So they're working on getting her back into the country. And so he's just a really, really good guy. He's really smart. He understands charter schools and he's willing to do it.
That's great.
Wow.
Well, let's encourage him to get in touch with Josh and we'll get the process rolling.
Okay.
Thank
And
you, Larry.
I'm sorry I didn't know who Gonzalo and Maurilio were, but I wanted to compliment the students for being here with us tonight and listening to what's going on. It's great to have you here. And
Well,
also
that's-
to Donna and Emily for joining us.
Yeah, that's also another benefit of allowing boards to meet via Zoom, right? You get more
Mhm.
public participation.
That's right.
That's right. I think it's here to stay. All righty. Closing items for the next board meeting. I think it'd be great to have a presentation on from the students on the athletic programs. So perhaps we can get that on the list of things to include. Any other items?
I would add that if there's if there's a shortage of time, I'm willing to go extra to have kids come and present about the athletics.
Great.
I just had like general procedural questions. I'm still learning how this works. Is now a good time to ask that?
Sure.
So my understanding is at the beginning, there's public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. And then after each agenda item, there's like a time to discuss and ask questions. Okay, great. And I'm basically here to take notes for teachers. That's kind of what I'm seeing as my role. And like, I'm finding that there are things that like, I don't understand what a bond is, right? But I don't want to completely derail the meeting by having a 20-minute discussion about what a bond is, right? So I guess I'm asking beyond like the board agenda, when I'm seeking to understand what it is that we're making decisions on. Is like the board my point of contact? Is Josh my point of contact?
I think Josh or Daniel would be your best sources of information, but any of the board members are available. I think our contact information is on the website. So depending on what kind of question might determine who you want to approach, but we're all available.
Great.
Thank you for your interest.
Yeah, thank you.
And then just to address your specific example, Emily, I would say that, the board documents, the state administration does a great job of putting up the board documents along with the agenda before the meetings. So on your specific example, the contract with the bond council or Carrington and Sutcliffe is available for everybody to view. And then, you probably would have questions because it's a very lengthy contract that is about a lot of stuff that you don't know about and nobody much knows about it. But then when you read it, it'll probably, trigger some questions that you can ask at the board meeting.
And related to that, Donna had a comment about the links in the agenda. Yeah.
Can I just share my screen here really fast? So this is the saveschools.org. Here, let me go back one page. So you go to the landing page right here, and then regular board meeting, click on that. You've got your Zoom agenda here, or Zoom URL to log in. And then here, if you click on this, it opens up. Give me a second.
Eventually.
Maybe not.
And then it's got the agenda here. And then as you scroll down, every single attachment's here. So you can scroll down and find, anything that you might want to see regarding.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify those first few pages, they have links that go to boardable items.
Right.
But in lieu of clicking those links, I know board members, me and Josh, and I think Nick, all have the ability to click links and it'll go to boardable because we have boardable logins. However, instead of clicking the link, you can easily scroll down and find the attachment for every single item that is linked. That's why this is 92 pages. We included everything that that is in the packet.
All righty. Any other items for the board for the next board meeting?
I have a quick question. Are you guys getting ELO funds? And will you be having on the agenda your plan?
Yes, Josh.
Because that has to be approved before June 1. So that will be on there then. Okay, so it's not something that we have to because you guys already have it on your list to do. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Do we have a problem with that?
Well,
no, we don't have a problem.
We intended to have that in this agenda and somehow we overlooked it. We have the complete application, but we did not get it into the agenda. So we'll be out about when we will approve that as a board.
So okay, so our next meeting is in June, correct? Or
it is June 1.
Oh, it's June 1. Okay, so it's perfect. Okay. Right under the gun.
Lucked out.
Okay.
I just want to remind the board that it is often possible, depending on the agency, to approve after a deadline, as long as the document has been submitted on time. So, I'm not sure about this one, but typically CDE documents, can be sent in before the deadline and then approved. In this case, the same day. In other cases, it might be 10 days later.
That's good to know. Okay. Well, if there are no other items, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I have a
Second,
second? Thank you, Olivia. Michael votes yes. Olivia, how do you vote?
yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Gershom,
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And Larry gets a gold star for coming up with a great candidate, sounds like, for the board.
So
So thanks to everybody for being here.
Thank
Until
you.
next
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, you guys.